In the annals of crime history, there are more than a few cases of killer couples. The reasons why these murderous couples killed varied to some extent, but lust was often the driving force. Usually, the man was the dominant member of the relationship and the one who introduced the woman to the vocation of serial killing. Oftentimes, the woman was used to lure hapless female victims, although in nearly every known case, the woman also actively participated in the sadistic torture sessions and murders. Some of the more notable killer couples are identified here. This list of couples includes the Sunset Strip killers, Doug Clark and Carol Bundy, who killed 7 people in 1980 in Southern California. Clark is believed to have been the mastermind behind the couple's reign of terror, but Bundy was a willing participant and even committed a murder on her own. Another killer couple's venue, located a few hundred miles to the north of the Sunset Strip killers' Southern California stomping grounds, spanned from Northern California to Nevada. The media gave the married couple Gerald and Charlene Gallego a few nicknames, but mostly referred to them as either the love slave killers or the Gallego sex slave killers. This notorious couple killed 10 people during the late 1970s and early 1980s. Like the Sunset Strip killers, the Gallegos were led by the male half who meticulously planned out the details of their rapes and murders. Less well known to Americans, but infamous household names in Canada, are Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. This couple was responsible for the murder of 3 girls, young women in Canada, including Homolka's own sister. Again, all evidence shows that it was Bernardo who planned the murders and manipulated Homolka to a certain extent. In January 2013, another Canadian couple became almost as infamous as Bernardo and Homolka when they abducted, raped, and murdered an innocent woman. Although the couple was quickly caught, most in the law enforcement community believed that if they had not been, then they no doubt would have continued killing just as the 3 couples mentioned in today's video. Michael McGregor and Tanya Bogdanovich displayed all of the antisocial hallmarks that any serial killing couple exhibits, but with one major difference. The female was the dominant killer for this notorious couple. At first glance, there seems to have been very few things that Michael McGregor and Tanya Bogdanovich had in common. There was a considerable age difference and their backgrounds were very dissimilar. Still, the two shared some dark desires that eventually united them and later contributed to their commission of murder. Michael McGregor was born in 1994 and grew up in the southwestern Ontario city of Sarnia. He was raised in a modest, middle-class neighbourhood that was very much like one you would find across North America. Sarnia may be in the same province as Toronto, but in many ways, it has a hometown feel that is more akin to that of a Midwestern American city. Crime is low, the schools are good, and people are neighbourly in Sarnia, which has made it an attractive destination and a growing city. As a child, McGregor had no legal problems, and, by all accounts, was a well-adjusted kid. He got along with his neighbours and never caused problems in school. He had a good relationship with his parents and enjoyed going on trips with them. With that said, McGregor never could really find himself. He had few interests in high school, was an average student at best, and didn't have many friends. After he graduated high school, McGregor did what most of his fellow students did and entered college, but he just wasn't ready for the rigorous studying required to be successful at that level. McGregor dropped out of college during his first semester. He lived in his parents' home and, for money, delivered food for a local pizzeria. For the most part, Michael McGregor was not very different from many 18-year-olds, except he was missing a special someone with whom he could share his time and dreams. But Michael McGregor's dreams were not conventional, to say the least. When he wasn't delivering pizzas, McGregor spent most of his free time surfing the web and visiting various internet chat rooms. He found himself drawn to websites that catered to bondage fetishes, discovering that the biggest turn-ons resulted from interacting with and viewing the more violent ones. McGregor began downloading thousands of images of violent pornography, but he was still not satisfied. He needed his violent sexual fantasies to become a reality. The problem was that, in the world of sexual sadism and masochism, SM, he was a sub, which means submissive. Michael McGregor needed to find a dom, or dominant, partner who could show him the way. After trying unsuccessfully to find his dominant half on a number of websites, he finally struck gold at an obscure internet chat room named FetLife. In 2012, Tanya Bogdanovich was 28 years old and well familiar with the world of sexual sadism. Although 10 years McGregor's senior, They were a perfect fit in many ways, as she was the dominant personality for which he was searching. But they came from completely different worlds. Where McGregor's family life was stable and both of his parents were living at home, Bogdanovich, like many in her generation, was a child of divorce. Although countless children of divorce go on to live productive lives, and some of the most notable people in modern society come from divorced families, there is no doubt that it has a negative impact on the children in such families. Divorce clearly had a negative impact on Bogdanovich's life. She spent most of her youth with her mother and never really knew her father, so she didn't receive the support of a strong male figure that children need. Her mother never disciplined her much, and when she did, Tanya simply ignored her. From a young age, Tanya learned that she could do virtually whatever she wanted. Her mother never really seemed to care anyway. Bogdanovich never really seemed to fit in anywhere as a child, going from one peer group to another until she finally started to run with rougher crowds that were into drugs and alcohol. By her teen years, Bogdanovich already had a substance abuse problem, and she later claimed that she was also raped as a teenager. Like many children who are victims of sexual assault, Bogdanovich became extremely promiscuous, changing sexual partners quite frequently. Most of Bogdanovich's relationships were flawed from the beginning, and many were physically and psychologically abusive. Despite the chaos that was a ubiquitous part of her life, or possibly because of it, she had 3 children when in her late teens and mid-20s. Tanya Bogdanovich never came close to winning any Mother of the Year awards. She had no job skills to speak of, and since she wasn't particularly ambitious, Bogdanovich turned to the world's oldest profession to make money. Although not particularly physically attractive, Tanya Bogdanovich carved out a place for herself in the Western Ontario prostitution scene by offering her services as a dominatrix. It was through her work as a professional dominatrix that Bogdanovich was able to earn enough money to pay her rent, and it also allowed her to indulge some of her more taboo desires that mixed sex and violence. Still, she could only do so much as a professional dominatrix, and the reality was that she could only do what her clients wanted. There was always a safe word that could end the session. Bogdanovich desired something more real and more violent. For that, she went to FetLife, which is where she met McGregor in late 2012. FetLife is a Canadian-based website that caters to people who enjoy non-normative sexual tastes, as it states on its welcome page, "Like Facebook, but run by kinksters like you and me. We think it is more fun that way, don't you?" The site offers a plethora of different chat rooms and a message board where kinksters can discuss their sexual fetishes with like-minded people or possibly find a sexual partner. The site, though, has been the source of controversy. Besides its obvious content that is enough to make many people cringe, FetLife users have been involved in more than one criminal investigation. Most recently, Illinoisan Brent Christensen was charged with kidnapping a female Chinese scholar named Yingying Zhang in June 2017 near the University of Illinois campus in Urbana, Illinois. The investigation has revealed that Christensen had a kidnapping and rape fetish, and that he was quite open about it on numerous message boards dedicated to similar fetishes on FetLife. Bogdanovich and McGregor met on a message board dedicated to bondage and sadism fetishes. Sexually speaking, the two were a perfect fit. McGregor was a sub, and Bogdanovich was a dom. The two spent several hours online discussing their sexual preferences and fantasies, which besides S&M also included rape fantasies. After simulating their fantasies in chat rooms and then on their phones, the two decided to take their relationship to the real world. But when the couple did take their fantasies into real life, they both felt that they had to go as far as they could with it. The pair's idea of S&M was on the extreme side when considered among that of other aficionados of the fetish. For instance, to Bogdanovich and McGregor, simply tying each other up with bedsheets was not enough. Instead, they role-played violent rape scenarios where choking and cutting with knives was the norm. The two especially liked to choke each other until one of them reached the point of passing out. They found it thrilling to see their partner's eyes roll back into their head as they were about to lose consciousness. The knife play could also get serious, as there was more than one occasion where injuries were sustained. For McGregor, the transition of their relationship from the virtual to the real world was a dream come true. The socially awkward college dropout now had a girlfriend who shared his same dark desires. He had a lot to look forward to in late 2012. For Bogdanovich, it was just another notch in her belt of sexual conquests. Tanya was actually involved in a long-term relationship with another man when she began her real-world sexual relationship with McGregor, But that mattered little to the mother of three. Bogdanovich operated under the premise that everything and everyone in the world was there to fulfill her needs or entertain her in some way. Tanya was also attracted to weaker men, so her current boyfriend had little say concerning what she did with other men. McGregor, though, seemed perfect for Bogdanovich. "I feel so lucky I can't even believe it. I can feed every need. I can fulfill every urge. I feel no shame about what I like or who I am with you, because you have the urges, or at least ones that work so perfectly with mine," Bogdanovich said to McGregor in an instant message. But a relationship built on S&M and rape fantasy fetishes can only last so long. Eventually, the two began to tire of the situation. McGregor began seeing other women, and Bogdanovich also kept a revolving door of men working. But just when it seemed that their demented relationship would end, Bogdanovich posted an eerie message online to her favourite sub. "Rape brought us together. Violence has kept us together. Violence has kept us going, and rape will be what holds us strong when our bond is challenged." In order to keep her sub happy, Bogdanovich formulated some sick ideas that involved abduction, rape, and eventually murder. The violent kidnapping, rape, and murder fantasies that McGregor and Bogdanovich acted out and eventually turned into reality were disturbing enough on their own, but they are even more so when one considers that Bogdanovich was not only a mother of 3 children at the time, but also a nurse. When Tanya was working as a prostitute and dominatrix, she attended nursing school in her spare time. It may seem strange that someone so broken and dysfunctional, who revelled in causing and receiving pain, would enter a profession where the intent is to help alleviate people's pain. Perhaps she thought the work would be easy, or maybe she thought she could get her hands on some prescription drugs to use in one of her fantasies. Whatever the reason, she took the Hippocratic Oath and went into nursing. Although she was not the brightest student, Bogdanovich eventually completed her schooling and found work full-time as a nurse in the Sarnia area. If only her employers knew what she was really like. By early December 2012, Bogdanovich told her willing sexual acolyte that they needed to make their violent sexual fantasies reality, and in order to do so, they obviously had to find a victim. Since neither of the two were seasoned criminals, their early plans were full of holes, the attempts to carry them out awkward at best. But they both knew that they wanted a young female victim. The couple decided to go on dry runs at the local Sarnia mall, where they would approach teenage girls and ask them if they would like to leave with them and go somewhere else. After a few dry runs, the pair thought better of the plan when they realised that malls are full of witnesses and security cameras. The next evil idea came straight from the mind of Tanya Bogdanovich. Bogdanovich thought she would really surprise her boyfriend with something appropriate and original for his 19th birthday. Instead of giving him an electronic device or some clothes, Tanya gave McGregor a collection of digital images comprised of local teenage girls she took from Facebook profiles. McGregor was ecstatic. The couple spent hours looking through the images and gathering information on their favourite girls in order to decide the best time and place to snatch their quarry. They stalked the local mall and area high schools looking for their favourite victim. The couple also practiced their individual roles for the planned kidnapping numerous times on each other. But despite all the time the couple put into finding a victim for their twisted sexual fantasies, their crime ended up being one of opportunity. New Year's Eve 2012 was a big night in Sarnia. The bars were filled with revellers, and just as many people were attending New Year's house parties, which is where 27-year-old Noelle Paquette found herself. Paquette was an attractive schoolteacher who never had a problem making new friends. According to her friends and family, her smile was infectious, and she was the type of person who would give you the shirt off her back if needed. She was also extremely trusting of people. Too trusting. The night had not gone the way Paquette had planned. Instead of spending some quality time with her boyfriend, the two ended up at a loud party where both had drank too much and then argued. Noelle pleaded with her boyfriend to leave the party, but he said he was enjoying himself and wanted to stay. A couple of hours into the new year of 2013, Noelle, annoyed and discontent, told her boyfriend that she was walking home. The last text message that Noelle sent was around 2:30 a.m. on January 1st, 2013 to her boyfriend. New Year's Eve was a particularly boring night for Tanya Bogdanovich. She spent the night working until 11 p.m. and then ran some errands and drove around Sarnia extensively. Sometime after 2:30 a.m. she noticed the attractive Paquette walking alone down the cold streets of Sarnia underdressed. Bogdanovich pulled up next to Paquette and offered her a ride. The schoolteacher at first declined the offer, but reconsidered when she thought about how far she had to walk in the cold. She was also reassured by Bogdanovich's demeanour. The sexual sadist could appear sweet and even charming if need be. The last text message that Noelle sent was around 2:30 a.m. on January 1st, 2013, to her boyfriend. New Year's Eve was a particularly boring night for Tanya Bogdanovich. She spent the night working until 11 p.m. and then ran some errands and drove around Sarnia extensively. Sometime after 2:30 a.m, she noticed the attractive Paquette walking alone down the cold streets of Sarnia underdressed. Bogdanovich pulled up next to Paquette and offered her a ride. The schoolteacher at first declined the offer, but reconsidered when she thought about how far she had to walk in the cold. She was also reassured by Bogdanovich's demeanour. The sexual sadist could appear sweet and even charming if need be. Once Paquette was seated in Bogdanovich's car, the two drove a short distance until they pulled over to let a man into the car. It was Michael McGregor. Bogdanovich had texted her paramour to alert him about the situation and the potential that they might finally turn their violent fantasies into reality. McGregor got into the back seat behind Paquette, pulled out a knife and put it to the young woman's neck. He told her that if she would cooperate, then she'd live. McGregor and Bogdanovich had no intention of letting Paquette go. They agreed ahead of time to leave no witnesses, and not only that, the act of murder would fuel their sexual highs. Without saying a word, Bogdanovich drove to a location about 15 miles outside of Sarnia that the couple had reconnoitred a short time before the abduction of Noelle. McGregor dragged the frightened, crying Paquette from the car and threw her to the cold, hard ground. As Noelle begged for her life, the despicable duo merely laughed when McGregor handed the knife to Bogdanovich. The young sadist then proceeded to rape the schoolteacher. But Noelle's torment had just begun. The duo then took turns stabbing her. Noelle succumbed as a result of 49 stab wounds. After killing Paquette, the two lovers shared a passionate embrace and then left the site. Not far from the murder scene, Bogdanovich and McGregor were pulled over for a minor traffic violation. The police noticed that blood covered both the duo and the car's interior. A further search revealed that McGregor was bleeding from an injury. Perplexed by the situation, the police asked where all the blood came from. Bogdanovich responded that they had been engaged in S&M in the woods and were celebrating the new year with kink. The police were rightfully suspicious, but Paquette's body had yet to be found, so McGregor was transported to the local hospital for treatment of his wounds, and Bogdanovich was allowed to leave. As McGregor was being put on a stretcher for the ambulance ride to the hospital, he made the curious remark, "Is this the strangest thing you ever had?" to one of the paramedics. The paramedic mentioned McGregor's question to police officers at the scene, who then scrutinised their accident victim more thoroughly. McGregor was ultimately taken into surgery for his injuries that, in the opinion of the attending physicians, looked like self-inflicted stab wounds. The suspicions surrounding the circumstances of McGregor's admittance to the hospital were aggravated by Tanya Bogdanovich, who spent most of January 1st and 2nd lurking around the hospital's ER waiting room. Many of the hospital staff thought she was acting extremely strange, and others believed that she was McGregor's mother. Bogdanovich's concern for McGregor's condition probably had less to do with worries about his health than what he might say about their thrill kill of Noelle Paquette. Tanya may have enjoyed her twisted time with McGregor, but it was becoming apparent that she didn't trust him. Noelle Paquette's mangled body was finally found on January 2nd, and at that point, it was only a matter of time before the police determined that Bogdanovich and McGregor were the culprits. Less than 30 hours after the discovery of Noelle Paquette's body, Bogdanovich was arrested outside of the hospital and McGregor was taken at a nearby motel. Once the two were in police custody, they spilled their guts. Neither offered much of a defence, which is why the people of the city of Sarnia and the province of Ontario were not surprised when the murderous duo pleaded guilty in February 2016 to Paquette's murder. McGregor's lawyer later said that his client's plea was entered to spare both his and Paquette's family the pain of a trial, but the reality is that he was perhaps the most hated person in Canada at the time, and there was no way he could have beaten the charges. There was no legal way out of the situation for either McGregor or Bogdanovich. When the two were sentenced, the judge admonished them with an especially sharp rebuke in summation of their actions. "You chose in the darkest and most violent way to satisfy your overpowering lust," said Superior Court Justice Bruce Thomas. "Your actions are vile and they are despicable, and as a result, you will be removed from the society for what might perhaps be for the rest of your lives." Hey friends, thank you for listening to today's story. Make sure to click the notification icon to stay updated on all future narrations. I release new videos twice every day at 10 AM and 8 PM Eastern Time. If you have a story to share, please send it to the email displayed on the screen. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like and leave an encouraging comment. It really helps me keep bringing you more narrations like this. If you'd like to support the channel even more, you can get early access to all future narrations and bonus content over on Patreon. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.